covered in ice. There's some of them chipped off already. But I got the torpedo here going. It's going to be a while. So I suppose we're just going to go have some coffee. Come back once this is dried up. Alright, today we're starting part 4 of the budget roll-off build. And where we're going to start today is on the rear section of the truck frame. I need to cut this off and we need to start building our hinges. And this will give you kind of an idea of what we're doing here. Something similar. You can see my center line here. This is what we're shooting for. I may end up coming back just a little bit. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I don't want to go too far past the rear leaf spring hanger. The farther we go out here, the weaker this becomes. So, and it changes a lot of things. So once I get my final measurement, we're going to cut the frame. I think before I do that is I'm going to build my hinges. I'm building my hinges out of an old piece of truck frame, some old carrier bearings that I pulled out of old pieces and parts of drive shafts that I have laying around, so that I can use the inner piece, which this is too small, but you get the idea. This is hardened steel, and what I'm going to do is take our truck frame. Let me show you. We're basically going to cut our truck frame right here, and that truck frame is going to sit right down in here like this, and then we'll reinforce under it. So the only question is, how many of these am I going to use? I'm thinking about doing 2. One here, maybe one here, spread them out a little bit, get my pin a little bit longer, get that load spread apart, not real short. Maybe do one on the inside, one on the outside. And as far as the pins themselves, I'm using old truck axle. And believe it or not, we have a 30 thousandths difference between this one and this. Now this is a larger diameter here than it is down in here, but that shaft is actually long enough. This is the one side. Most trucks, if you notice, the pinions are usually offset. You can see how this one, well, maybe you can't see it, but it's offset to one side. That's how differentials work. So this one on this truck is longer, and that one is long enough, even after I cut everything off, to go completely across. Now I'm not sure that's what I'm going to do if I'm making 2 separate pins, but we will see when time comes. So let's get to cutting. All right. It's a pretty decent cut for what it is, considering I started with a bad battery, or a low battery. All right, now I need to make a cut this way. taken our axle shaft and I've cut the end of it off, and these are the insides of carrier bearings, those hardened centers. And then I'm making brackets now, and I got 4 of these. I cut them out with the plasma cutter, and I welded them, tacked them all together, because what we're going to do is we're going to make all of these identical. So we're going to make that ring go in the center of this. So we'll have one here and one here on this side, one here and one here. And because these races, these inner, not really races, the inner part of the bearing is 2, we're going to put them in the vise, hold them tight when they're perfectly lined up, and we're going to weld them together so we can get the width that I want. And I'm just not certain at this point if I'm leaving this as one big long pin or if I'm going to make 2. I'm kind of leaning towards making it 1 pin, but we'll see. So now we have this and we have our hole saw somewhere. We're going to head to the drill press and we're going to drill all 4 of these at the same time so we make sure we get them all the same. Alright, so I'm working on my hinges and I'm trying to decide which way I want to do it. Either have the 2 pieces of 3/8 truck frame together and just use just this piece here, which is about 1.5 inches wide, or if I want to go this route and take 2 of them races, weld them together, and put one here and one here. I like the looks of this one better, but I think I like having both of these here because it's a little extra wide. Okay, so I took those 2 inner races and I welded them together, and then I just took a flat disc and cleaned them out, and then I made these with a hole saw. This is old truck frame I cut out, you saw me do. Cut it out, we rounded the edges so they'll lay down in here nicely, and then we're going to put one of these will be in, so I can do this without knocking them down, will be in here, one on each side like that. Now I have to get them over set where they're going to go, and then I'm going to tack weld these once they're all laying nicely the way I want them. I'll tack weld the plates to these and then take them over the bench and weld them out the rest of the way.
Well, after about 2 years on the shelf, it's a time to unbox it because this one is pretty rough. So I'm taking it out and you're going to wear it.
Ooh.
Can you actually
Holy
see?
Crap, I can see out of this.
Yeah, imagine that.
Now I have to figure out how to set it. Well, it's amazing how much better you can weld when you can actually see what you're doing. And I'm not a welder. This is before with the old one. This is with the new one. I guess somebody should have let me got it out earlier.
Yeah, yourself.
All right, now let's get this welded up on here. Scuffing my fine paint. It's scuffing my fine paint. right, so we got the truck frame up on top of it. Now, in a perfect world, we would have went and bought 6-inch tall box tubing, 3 inches wide. We'd have bought probably 3 20-foot long sections, 20, 22, whatever they come, 24. And we would have built a carrier out of brand new steel. However, there's just not enough money in the budget to do that. So we're gonna do what's in the way that works. Is very budget friendly. This is old truck frame, you know. It's heavy, it's thick, it's strong, and it's too tall. It's gonna, you know, make our height more than it needs to be by 4 inches, but it is what it is. So we gotta spend the money where it's necessary, and we can work with this. So the idea is, this is my pivot point. It's gonna come up here. So when he goes over to pick up one of his dumpsters, okay, and it's on the ground, he needs this thing to be able to tilt down like this, and this part has to be able to meet the ground or close to it. So if you see here, you know, this is 51 inches to the top of this. You know, I get it. I wish it was lower. It is what it is. We're gonna have to work with what we got. I will say this, as I keep looking at this and looking at this, I keep thinking about cutting this frame right in half, taking the cross members out, and then taking this half right here and doing this and welding the two together and making box tubing. But squirrel. All right, so when he goes to hook up to one of his trailers, it has to tilt, okay? Then he's gonna hook to it. We're gonna put a Harbor Freight winch up on the top that he already has, save some money there. So he's gonna hook to the trailer and start winching it up this incline, okay? When he winches up the incline, he gets so far up, then he's gonna let it down. So we have to devise a roller system to guide this on here so it lines up where it's supposed to be. And we also have to have a lock system, which I've got some ideas as to what I think we might do, and I think it should work out okay. Man, we got a long way to go, a short time to get there. Sounds like a song. Anyways, I only have about one more week I could spend on this, and I have to get back to my work, and he needs this truck, so I need to get moving. When I get this thing set up, we're working on cylinders right now with CE, and he's been trying to locate cylinders. I've been working with CE on some cylinders, and we need them to get as high as we can because we need this thing to tilt at 48 degrees is minimum, 50 is better, and 52 is optimum. So that's where we're at. So hopefully the next thing we're talking about is building the actual plate for the hinge here and how we're gonna work all that. And back here, we're gonna be cutting this at an angle so it matches the ground. And we're gonna have to plate the bottom so we're not digging in. We're gonna have a roller back here. We gotta reinforce the front. Man, we got a lot of work to do. Yeah, I can't chat anymore. I gotta get to work. Hey, looky there. I got a celebrity guest here. Looky out there.
Hi.
I heard you pull in.
How could you miss it? Holy cow, that truck's got 2 frames.
Yeah. Look how tall it's gonna be. Wow, it's pretty high, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really want to take this frame and slice it.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
That's what I said.
I know. But man, if we get that down 5 inches, I mean, it would make such a difference.
Yeah.
Man, is it a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
6-inch by 3-inch, 3/8 wall box tubing would have been ideal, but I would need 3 rows of it, 3 sticks. One for here, and then for cross members, right?
Oh.
So they're 100 and, I can't remember what they said, 160 a piece. So it adds up to a lot of money. So this is much more gooder, cost effective.
Very cost.
Yeah, so I was just squaring the frame up so I could get my cuts back here because they were pretty close. So, yeah, I'm gonna try and shove this forward. This is my center line, my hinge. That's how much overhangs. But I'm gonna cut off the front where the engine mount was, because right here it kind of dips in, so that little bit I'm cutting off, I'll be cutting like 2 feet off of here. So these are my measurements I've been working with, because everything I find says when you're doing this, the way to set up to get the angle I want, my multiplier, wherever the ram hits the frame, you multiply by 0.813 to give me the angle that I want. So it's wherever it hits, whether you mount it with the cylinder going this way or the cylinder going this way, you have to measure from the center of that hinge to wherever you're mounting the pin on what you're lifting.
Okay.
So when I come up with a 0.813, if I put the pin going this way, it says we need 68 inches of length, right? But that calculation doesn't give me how to figure the cylinder body. And it seems to me that, like, I was originally going to do it here so that I could hang truck frame down here, get over top of this horrible splice, and bolt on either side to strengthen this. Even though it would be pushing on it, I thought putting that truck frame in there would help, right? Yeah. Instead of coming up here like I see most of them and pushing back.
Well, the cylinders will lay down the back of the truck. Want to bring it in here and look at it?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Okay, so CE was here for quite a few hours, and he came out to drop these off. And I had contacted CE because he's a hydraulics guru, man. He is the go-to guy. So I called him and I asked him if he knew of any or where we could get some. And he says, let me look around. So he calls me and tells me that he has a couple of these cylinders laying around. They're matching. They're slightly different on the eyes, where the pins go, but the internals are identical. So I told him, I said, yeah, look into it. Let me know. Just let me know what they'll cost, and we'll move forward from there. So Saturday, he came by and he drops these off, and I told him, I said, now listen, you got to tell me what these cost so I can get you paid, because I'm not taking them for free. He's going to get paid one way or another. So he can either tell me what they're going to cost, because I know he's watching this, or I'm just going to make sure he gets paid the way I want to. And that's how that'll work. So he was gracious enough to spend some time with me, and I was leaning on him for some expertise and experience on where to set these cylinders. There's a formula you can use where you figure out from your hinge pin forward to where your cylinder is going to mount, and it tells you that distance, and you multiply it, and based on what degree you want, tells you how long your cylinders need to be. Well, him and I messed around with this for, like I said, hours, trying to figure out the best situation and make these things work. And what we came up with is, this is the pin. The pin will be located here, and then also lower here. 12 inches below the frame is the bottom of the pin, because we need to get that cylinder at somewhat of an angle. The more horizontal it lays, the less power you have at the beginning to lift until it starts to straighten up and the angle change. So we have to drop that pin down low. And the only unfortunate thing about this is, if we put the pin here and push this way, we have from this point all the way forward that's unsupported. And I'm trying to figure out if I can go from this point this way, if it makes a difference. So if you see any of this yellow, there's blue chalk all over. This is my granddaughter's sidewalk chalk. We were doodling and measuring and marking and calculating and thinking. And I'm very thankful for CE and his information and his wisdom and his help, that's for sure. So we thank him sincerely for that. It's always nice to have someone who understands what I'm doing, because I don't, and I can bounce ideas off of him and take, a respectful answer from him, because I have full confidence in CE. So now what I'm working on is the rear hinges. And I'm using this truck frame, and I use this because this is 3/8 heat treated frame, and it's very strong. So what I've done is I've chosen the best part of the frame. There's a lot of parts of the frame where there's been things mounted and it gets thin where it's had rust jacking. It's unfortunate this has some holes in it. I'll just have to weld them up, that's all there is to it. I cut this angle here. I just lay some flat stock in, and there's another internal race, if you want to call it that, from one of them carrier bearings. So I'm gonna put that in, and then it'll end up being like this, where I take flat stock, I tack welded it here, brought it down, tack welded it here, heated it up, rolled the bend, because this is a rolled ground edge, just like that right there. I tacked it here, rolled it, tacked it here, heated up again, rolled it, and then brought it down here, cut it to length, and then welded it in place. And then I rounded the edges here just so it wouldn't be, you know, jagged. And I drilled the holes. These are 5/8 bolts, and I drilled the holes 5/8, so it's very, very tight. There's no play in there. I don't want that getting loose and rocking. I could still lay a weld above each one, and I still may do that. I don't know. We'll see when the time comes. But the purpose of this was I wanted this to be reinforced here, because, you know, if you have a flange here and then nothing here, and you get that thing way up in the air, it'd be real easy for this just being flat plate to twist. Now, I wasn't going to use this on these. I was just going to drill a hole this size and then make it to where this pin had a plate that bolted onto here. But I decided that I'd go ahead and use that because it worked out very well, because I needed the spacer. You can't see that. I need a spacer right here to space it off, and that works out well because it's hardened steel against hardened steel. I was gonna make this flat and just put a washer between the two, but now I don't need to. It's gonna work out well. So my next step is I need to get this get this all welded up, get the holes welded in, get all this, and make it like this. And I'm not certain if I'm gonna add 2 more holes yet or not. We'll see when the time comes. These are all grade 8 bolts that I took out of the frame from up in the front, and we will likely clean these up and reuse them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're as shiny as the day they were put in. They're in really nice shape. There's no reason not to reuse those. So, without further ado, time for me to get welding. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. That's my second hinge. I got it all welded up, and the holes are drilled. It's all cleaned up, primed, and now painted. So here's where I'm at in the back. I got my reinforcement piece on the bottom taken care of. I took that piece of truck frame that we've been cutting on that was laying right here, that heat treated 3/8 truck frame, and I just split it down the middle and put it underneath here, and we're just trying to reinforce the bottom of that. It's overkill. I understand that, but I gotta tell you, I don't remember the last time I was ever upset that I overdid something. You know, we don't want them to have problems. We want it to be trouble-free, and I think that's gonna do it. I'd let it roll underneath here, and as you can see here, it comes all the way into here. And I took it all the way up as far as I could. It was 65 inches long, so when I split it in the middle, I just used the whole thing because it got me real close up here. As you can see, the frame, the upper frame is sitting on the truck frame, so now this here is still free. There's space in between the two, and I got the rear spaced up 3/16 of an inch so that when we go to dump, we have clearance on the top of here. So we should roll around there with no troubles, I think. And that's the way I had set that up when I was building the hinges. I've got, I used as many factory holes as I could, what was in here, and I just kind of matched the layout. And then I did the same thing on the other side. You know, there's a lot of holes in it because it's used truck frame. So I just laid it out the same over here, so that if I have to add any bracing in here, because we're going to have a big brace right in here, right where the hinge will be, but if I need to put any other bracing in here, everything is symmetrical, so there's no weird weird measuring, any of that stuff. When I put this on here, I don't use sharp corners. I either do a 45 cut or I'll round the corners. And then down here on the bottom, I take that flange and I grind the top of it so it's not an abrupt, sharp edge right on the frame here. It kind of rolls off. The idea is to strengthen that hinge point. And again, I understand it's overkill, but when you go to lift something out here with the tail end, naturally this is where it's going to want to bend. And when it bends, if I don't have a good brace going across this way, all it has to do is widen just a little bit and it'll bend for sure. Alright, so I ground all the teeth down and took a flat disc and went over top of it and got it smoothed out. That way it won't grind in here. Alright, so I need to make a way to stop this from coming through. So what I did is took a piece of truck frame, cut the center out with a hole saw, cut the outside with a hole saw, made it the diameter of this, and then we'll weld it on the inside. I'd say that got hot enough. Alright, so I wanted a couple washers in here that can turn independently. I didn't have anything, couldn't find anything, so I took big washers and put them in a drill press, took a hole saw, and cut them to the diameter I need. Alright, so the hinges are finished up, and my pin's in, and got this side done, and I'm making a piece to go over the end of the shaft, a little more substantial than just the bolt, you know, a piece of material about 1 inch wide or so that we can run the bolt through and let that rest against the washer. But it's drying right now, so we're gonna let it dry and then put it on. I'm ready to do the tilt for the first time. We're hoping for 48 degrees. Anywhere from 48 to 50 would be ideal, but at least 48. And I didn't cut a whole lot off of here. I was a little conservative, and I may need to cut a little more off, but let's try it. Let's see how it goes. Alright, so you guys can see the angle of how steep and how much frame is actually in the air. Bottoms of my trusses are 12 foot something, and it's a 412 pitch, so you could easily do the math and figure we're probably 13 foot something to the top of that one right there. And we are at 46.5 degrees, 48 at least, but it looks like we're limited here by this. I need to take a little bit more off the tail end. I bet you if I take 1 more inch off, I should be able to get to 50. Now here's why I'm kind of overdoing some things. I mean, you can see just the pure amount of steel hanging up there unsupported, and it's going to be real easy for that to twist. That's why it's so important that it's structurally sound here to guide it and keep it where it needs to be. So the cylinders that CE brought us, that circled blue spot is the actual hole that we had measured out that we were going to use, and then bring the cylinder down here 12 inches below the frame. Well, I'm going to step back here and see if I can show you this without tripping. So that blue mark is right there. I have 9 feet of unsupported steel up there in the air. And the problem with that is, one, we don't have anything to hold it this way as much. The cylinders aren't going to offer a lot for sway side to side, but it's better. It would be more support than down here. Up there would be better, you know, at this angle. Now, the problem that I see happening is I'm gonna have a winch up here, way up there, and that winch is gonna come down here to try and lift dumpsters. And when it does, that cable is gonna pull in the straightest line it can, and the weakest point's gonna give first. So as it's up there and the cable comes off, it's gonna try and shorten that cable, make it the most direct straight line it can pulling, which means it's gonna pull this way or this way, depending on how heavy how high you're hooking here, whether it's below the angle, below the line of the winch, or if it's above. It's either going to pull that this way or that way, and that's when it could bend. Now, is it going to bend that steel? I don't know. If it's up there and it can do this, it could certainly bend this way, or it could certainly bend this way. May not bend this way, but that's the things I'm trying to prevent from happening. So at the ends, I need to gusset the corners real well with diagonal bracing so that we don't have to worry about that. The problem I see now is, you can see my numbers here, my marks. Those are from the pin forward, meaning from this hinge pin up to those marks, where we're setting that is 72 inches, and then from there up to there is 9 feet. And I'm just not comfortable with that. I may have to come up with something else. I don't want to use a scissor assembly because they're right in the center, and in order to get a scissor assembly to work for this, it's very expensive to get one that's going to do high enough. Otherwise, it's way back here where I don't want it. And two, it's single cylinder in the middle or dual cylinder in the middle. I want these cylinders out here for the stability as much as I can. So let me get this down. I'm going to move forward with some other things while I work on a solution for this. That's what every build is. It's a matter of, you know, running across problems, and you're going to compromise on certain things and won't make things not as good as you like, but make other things better. And it's constantly working through problems. It's just what it is. All right, so I have 4 cross members in so far. These were originally bolted in place in different locations. We're removing them and putting them in locations where we want them. So I've been taking them out. I'll take a needle scaler to them, and then my wife takes a wire wheel and cleans up the rest of it. I'm grinding behind where they're going to mount so that I can weld them in, because I can't have any bolts from midway of the frame up. I can't have any bolts coming through. If you notice, we have these cross members have a curve to them, as you can see here. So we have the back ones. That back one's going curved this way. The one at the hinge is curved that same way, but we're going to be adding another one going the other way, and then this one goes back that way, and then this one goes opposite. So they're basically going back and forth, and that's to help to keep it from twisting. If I put them all the same way, as you can see, the edges are kind of rounded right there. So if I put them all the same way, it would be more prone to rack, like roll. So I'm going back and forth and back and forth. Alright, so I was able to take a cutting disc and cut my weld out on both sides. Then I took a grinder and ground my plug welds down completely flat. Used my mag drill in here with an annular cutter and basically cut around the hole, and that worked out okay. I cleaned everything back up and welded it back in. Everything worked just fine. And I was able to, and I flipped it over and put it in the right way. How about that? And then I was able to add this one back here, so you can see what we're after here. That gets us right in that hinge area, really stiffens that up, and it is bolted together before we welded, and then again welded down both sides and plug welded. And then it leaves us access to our bolts right here. And this is done. So now you can kind of see what I was talking about. We got one that with a good solid flat edge here welded, and then we got one facing that one. Those face this way, this faces this way, this one faces this way, and now this one here will go this way. I'm going to put this in next, and after that I have to really get my cylinders mounts made and the pin system, whatever I'm going to do up here. because I don't want to put anything in here that's going to interfere with whatever I come up with, because, you know, I'm designing this in my head as we go, basically, and it is what it is. But I think that's it for now, because we're getting kind of long, and we'll pick up in the next part where I am making cylinder mounts and pins and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you on the next one.